Welcome to Nightmare Network, where nightmares come to life. Get ready to dive into the darkest corners of the human psyche, where every shadow hides a secret and every whisper sends shivers down your spine. So grab a blanket, turn off the lights, and get ready for a journey into the unknown. Father's Day was approaching, and I felt a familiar pang of sadness. It had been a few years since Dad passed away, and I missed him more with each passing year. Wanting to feel close to him, I decided to clean out the attic, hoping to find some of his old belongings that would bring back cherished memories. The attic was a dusty, cobweb-filled place that I rarely visited. As I climbed the creaky wooden stairs, I was greeted by the musty smell of old books and forgotten treasures. I switched on the single dim light bulb hanging from the ceiling and began my search through the piles of boxes and old furniture. After an hour of sorting through photo albums, broken toys, and stacks of outdated magazines, I stumbled upon a small weathered box tucked away in a corner. Intrigued, I pulled it out and blew off the thick layer of dust that covered it. The box was labeled Father's Day cards, in my mother's neat handwriting. My heart swelled with a mix of joy and sorrow as I opened the box and saw the colorful cards I had made for my dad over the years. Smiling, I picked up the first card, a crude drawing of a stick figure family holding hands with Happy Father's Day, scrawled in large, childish letters. I remembered making that card when I was about 6 years old, my heart full of love and admiration for my dad. But as I opened the card, my smile quickly faded. Inside, in the same childish handwriting, was a message that sent a chill down my spine. "Daddy, please come home. We miss you." I stared at the card, my mind racing. I had no memory of writing those words, and my dad had never left us. We had always been a happy family, as far as I could recall. Shaking off the uneasy feeling, I set the card aside and picked up another one. This card, adorned with glitter and stickers, was from when I was a little older. Inside, the message was even more disturbing. "Daddy, why did you leave us? Mommy cries every night." A sense of dread washed over me. I rifled through the rest of the cards, each one revealing messages that grew increasingly desperate and heart-wrenching. "Daddy, please come back. We need you. Mommy says you're gone forever. Is it true? I'm scared, Daddy. When will you be home?" My hands trembled as I picked up the final card in the box. It was a simple card, no decorations, just a plain white cover. With a feeling of impending doom, I opened it. The message inside made my blood run cold. "Daddy, I know you're watching. Please let us be." I dropped the card, my hands shaking uncontrollably. Suddenly, the attic door slammed shut with a deafening bang, and I felt a cold presence behind me. My heart pounded in my chest as I turned slowly, dreading what I might see. There he was, my father, standing in the corner of the attic, his eyes filled with sadness and regret. He looked exactly as I remembered him, yet there was something otherworldly about his appearance. His skin was pale and translucent, and his eyes seemed to hold a depth of sorrow that pierced my soul. "I never meant to leave you," he whispered, his voice barely audible. "I had no choice." I stood frozen, unable to move or speak. Tears welled up in my eyes as I took in the sight of my father, a ghostly figure from my past. "Dad," I finally managed to choke out. "What happened? Why are you here?" He took a step closer and the air grew colder. "There are things you don't know, things I never told you," he said, his voice filled with a sorrow that cut me to the core. "I was taken from you, taken by forces beyond my control. I tried to protect you, to keep you safe, but I failed." I shook my head, trying to make sense of his words. "Taken? By what? What do you mean?" His eyes darkened and he glanced around the attic as if searching for something. "There are dark forces in this world, forces that prey on the innocent. I made a mistake, a terrible mistake, and it cost me my life. But I couldn't leave you, not completely. I've been watching over you, trying to keep you safe from afar." My mind reeled with questions and fear. What mistake? What dark forces? Dad, please tell me. He sighed, his form flickering like a candle in the wind. "It's too late now. They're coming for you too. I tried to warn you through the cards, to give you a chance to protect yourself, but I fear it's not enough." A chill ran down my spine as I remembered the messages in the cards. "Daddy, I know you're watching. Please let us be." The realization hit me like a punch to the gut. "Dad, what do I need to do? How can I protect myself? His form began to fade, his voice growing weaker. There's a book in my study, hidden behind the bookshelf. It holds the answers you seek. Find it, and you might have a chance. With that, he vanished, leaving me alone in the dark attic with my heart pounding in my chest. I wasted no time. I rushed downstairs to my father's old study, a room that had remained untouched since his death. I yanked at the bookshelf, pulling it away from the wall. There, hidden behind it, was an old leather-bound book. With trembling hands, I opened the book and began to read. It was filled with incantations, symbols, and descriptions of dark entities. My father had been involved in something far more sinister than I could have ever imagined. He had made a pact with a powerful entity, a pact that had ultimately led to his death. As I read through the pages, I found the incantation my father had mentioned, a spell of protection. I knew I had to act quickly. I gathered the necessary items from around the house and set up the ritual in the living room, following the instructions in the book to the letter. As I completed the incantation, a sense of peace washed over me. The house felt lighter, the oppressive darkness lifting. I knew my father had given me the tools I needed to protect myself and our family from the forces that had claimed him. Every Father's Day since, I light a candle in memory of my dad and say a prayer of protection. The cards remain in the attic, a haunting reminder of the dark secret my father took to his grave. But I know he's watching over us, guiding me from beyond the veil, ensuring that the darkness never claims another victim in our family. Every Father's Day, I experience the same haunting nightmare, a recurring terror that plagued my sleep with relentless intensity. In the depths of my subconscious, I found myself transported back to my childhood. Running through a dense forest, pursued by an unseen menace, the fear gripped me like icy talons, driving me onward through the darkness. This year, however, the nightmare took on a terrifying new dimension. As I fled through the twisted undergrowth, the sounds of pursuit echoed through the silent woods. Branches snapped and cracked behind me, and I could feel the hot breath of my pursuer on the back of my neck, sending shivers of terror down my spine. I stumbled and fell, the ground rushing up to meet me as I tumbled to the forest floor. Gasping for breath, I turned to face my unseen adversary, my heart pounding with fear. And there, standing over me in the moonlit darkness, was my father, or at least a twisted, grotesque version of him. His eyes were hollow voids, devoid of any trace of humanity, and his once kind face was contorted into a cruel, mocking grin. "You can't run from me," he hissed, his voice a sinister whisper that sent chills coursing through my veins. With a start, I awoke, drenched in a cold sweat, my heart hammering against my chest like a trapped bird. The nightmare had felt so vivid, so palpable, that it took me a moment to realize that I was safe in my own bed, the darkness of my room offering a stark contrast to the nightmare world I had just escaped. Shaken to my core, I knew I had to confront the dark specter that haunted my dreams. Gathering my resolve, I sought solace in the comforting presence of my mother, hoping to uncover the truth behind my father's troubled past. As we sat together in her cozy living room, the soft glow of candles casting dancing shadows on the walls, my mother revealed a long-held secret, a shadow that had lurked in the depths of my father's past, casting a pall over our family for years. She spoke of a dark ritual that my father had been involved in during his youth, a forbidden pact made in desperation and folly. The details were shrouded in mystery, but the consequences were all too real. It seemed that even in death, my father was haunted by the specter of his past, his tormented spirit unable to find peace. Determined to banish the darkness that had taken root in our lives, my mother and I embarked on a journey of cleansing and purification. Armed with bundles of sage and ancient prayers of protection, we sought to drive out the malevolent forces that had plagued our family for so long. With each step we took, each word of prayer we uttered, I felt a weight lifting from my soul, a sense of liberation washing over me like a cleansing tide. The darkness began to recede, driven back by the pure light of our determination and resolve. That night, as I lay down to sleep, I felt a sense of peace descend upon me like a gentle embrace. The nightmare did not come, and for the first time in as long as I could remember, I slept soundly, wrapped in the comforting embrace of safety and security. In the days that followed, the atmosphere in our home shifted, the heavy pall of darkness replaced by an air of lightness and hope. And as Father's Day approached once more, I felt a newfound sense of connection to my father. knowing that his spirit had been freed from the torment of his past. As I lit a candle in his memory on that fateful day, I felt his presence surrounding me, a whisper in the wind, a flicker in the flame. And in that moment, I knew that he had found peace at last. His troubled soul finally set free from the chains that had bound him for so long. Father's Day was always a bittersweet occasion for me, a day filled with memories of my dad, tinged with the sadness of his absence. He had been gone for years, taken from us far too soon by an illness that had swept through our lives like a silent storm. But this year, my mom handed me something that would change everything, a worn, weathered pocket watch that had once belonged to him. As I held the watch in my hands, I felt a surge of emotion welling up inside me, a strange mixture of longing and nostalgia, as if the watch itself held some hidden connection to my father, some fragment of his spirit that lingered within its intricate gears and ticking hands. My mom told me that he had wanted me to have it, and as I traced the faded engravings on its surface, I felt a sense of comfort wash over me, as if my dad were reaching out to me from beyond the veil of death. That night, I placed the watch on my nightstand before drifting off to sleep, the rhythmic ticking of its mechanism providing a soothing backdrop to my dreams. But as the night wore on, I was awoken by a sound that seemed to reverberate through the darkness, like the tolling of a distant bell. I opened my eyes to find the room bathed in an eerie half-light, the shadows dancing and shifting in the dim glow of the moon. And there, on my nightstand, the pocket watch lay, its hands spinning wildly, the ticking growing louder and more frantic with each passing moment. I reached out to touch it, but as soon as my fingers brushed against its cold metal surface, a chill ran down my spine, and the room seemed to grow colder still. And then I saw it, a shadowy figure standing at the foot of my bed, its form indistinct and ephemeral in the pale moonlight. My heart skipped a beat as I stared at the figure, a lump forming in my throat as I struggled to find my voice. "Dad," I whispered, the word barely audible above the ceaseless ticking of the watch. But the figure made no response, its presence looming over me like a specter from another world. Instead, it pointed, a silent gesture that seemed to carry more meaning than words ever could. I followed its gaze, my eyes falling upon the watch in my trembling hands, and as I did, the ticking stopped, the room falling silent once more, as if the very air held its breath in anticipation. And then, in the blink of an eye, the figure was gone, vanished into the darkness like a wisp of smoke on the wind. I was left alone once more, the watch clutched tightly in my grasp, its metal surface cool against my skin. In the days that followed, the watch remained a constant presence in my life, its ticking a familiar companion in the quiet hours of the night. But with each passing night, I couldn't shake the feeling that there was something more to it, something hidden beneath its surface that defied explanation. I tried to ignore it, to push the thought to the back of my mind and carry on with my life as usual. But no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't escape the sense of unease that gnawed at the edges of my consciousness, like a ravenous beast hungry for release. And then one night, as I lay in bed listening to the steady ticking of the watch, I felt it, a presence in the room, a presence that seemed to emanate from the very walls themselves. I sat up, my heart pounding in my chest as I scanned the darkness for any sign of movement. And there, at the foot of my bed, I saw it, the shadowy figure, its form obscured by the inky blackness of the night. I wanted to scream, to flee from the room and never look back. But something held me rooted to the spot, an invisible force that seemed to bind me to the spot like a fly caught in a spider's web. And then, with a suddenness that stole the breath from my lungs, the figure reached out, a skeletal hand extending towards me, its fingers curling like talons hungry for flesh. I recoiled in terror, my mind screaming for me to run, to escape before it was too late. But even as I struggled against the invisible bonds that held me in place, I knew deep down that there was no escape from the darkness that lurked within the heart of the watch. For in that moment, I realized the truth, that the pocket watch was not merely a keepsake from my father, but a vessel for his restless spirit, a conduit through which he sought to reach out to me from beyond the grave. And as the figure drew closer, its form merging with the darkness until it became one with the night itself, I knew that I was not alone, that my father was with me, his presence a comfort in the face of the unknown. And as I closed my eyes and surrendered to the darkness, I felt a sense of peace wash over me, knowing that no matter what horrors awaited me in the night, I would never be truly alone as long as my father's spirit watched over me.